Give me a sec. All right. I've only just woken up, so I'm trying to be quiet because Paul's asleep still. So I don't want to bother it. All right. So this is dropping. This the thing that we've all been waiting for, which is the dropping of the Trump files. Give me a minute to wake up. Have some coffee. It's odd timing. It's interesting dropping it on a Friday night at like what time is it on the East Coast? Like late. So giving everyone the weekend to chew over it, huh? So yeah. So I'm just gonna. I'll let me just adjust some settings and we should be all right. Okay, let's just go through. I've only seen sort of the first handful. I think let's just go through it together, shall we? I think people know that I was surprised, concerned, but also not that upset. I think a lot of people felt like Twitter sort of became a less toxic place. Let's put it that way. Much like I was saying yesterday, that you find yourself defending people who are this is the problem with principles, is that you end up accidentally defending people that you ordinarily defend. And I have no time or patience for, libs of TikTok, Trump, any of these people. I think they're terrible people. But I also think that this warrants pause, and I try not to let my dislike of people like Trump and libs of TikTok and even Elon Musk, right? I try not to let my dislike of them as people cloud my judgment on the issues, because that's exactly what the culture wars is designed to do, which is to get you doing lizard brain shit. I hate that person, therefore nothing they do is good. And I like that person, therefore everything they do is great. Okay, that's really lazy thinking. And, I think that we've got to move beyond the knee-jerk reaction. I mean, this is what these disinformation campaigns, this is how disinformation spreads. This is how you end up thinking you're an activist when you're on Twitter being mad all day. Like that's, these things hijack your emotions. Like that's the goal. So we'll go through this together. I thought personally, I don't think that there was a winning move here. I think it was, having not read yet what's happened, I'm pretty sure I know I'm going to be, I have a feeling that the worst possible spin is going to be put on a lot of these things. I have a feeling that they're going to lynch, sort of make it about individuals rather than process, like I talked about yesterday. They're going to make it, this is a process problem. This is a systemic problem. It is not, you can't blame individuals for problems of systems, okay? I have a feeling that because this is good old America, that the individuals will be lynched and no one will ever fix the system, right? What they'll do is they'll just go, well, that person was to blame. Everything's fixed now. That's the American way, right, is to Band-Aid the poison, right? So that's just put a Band-Aid on a fucking systemic infection. That's what they do best. So let's see how we go, shall we? Now, obviously, within a system, individuals can make decisions. Now, I've been thinking about this, and I can't think of how. It's the same people that think that they know everything about, a discipline, or again, these fucking STEM lords, these fucking idiots who think that, they don't do anything. They're just angry on Twitter talking about woke people 24/7. But, they have all the answers. Like the stupidest people are the loudest. The stupidest people are the most confident in their stupid ideas. And, like this is just the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is that, those who know the most about anything know that stuff's complex, and they doubt themselves. Like that's just the nature of things. But I think that there's going, because this is America and because this is American culture wars, there's going to be experts, the loudest ones, who aren't necessarily the experts. They're just loud. And those who are, those who are peddling simple analysis and simple ideas here, I think, again, just sit back, pay attention, and understand that these things are incredibly complex. These people don't actually do anything. Like these culture warrior types, they don't actually achieve or do anything other than just write, they're the same. They're all the same. They're all the same people who will blame an individual and form a lynch mob for somebody who's trying to do their best. And they, because someone fucks up and they weren't supported, they make it about the person rather than the system, because God forbid anyone ever look within at the system and go, okay, well, what was my role in this? Okay, so that's just, again, it's just American culture, right? The individual is to blame when it suits. Okay, and then, yeah, so anyway. You're going to see, you'll be entertained by a lot of the dumb shit. Let's put it that way. Let me just get it so I can see chats if there are any. Okay. I'm a bit tired, so. Okay. Yeah, all right. So, Matt Taibbi. So he's one of the better ones. I have no time for like Barry Weiss. I think her coverage yesterday, the more I think about it, the more angry I get, because that woman gets paid millions of dollars for that shit. Like, what the fuck? Anyway, so Matt Taibbi, thread, the Twitter files. See, it's still going. Okay, here we go. Actually, let me just crop the notification part out. Hang on. Let's just do this so that it's not annoying you. Okay, so thread, the Twitter files. Here we go. The removal of Donald Trump, part 1. October 2020 to January 6th. The world knows much of the story of what happened between the riots at the Capitol on January 6th and the removal of President Donald Trump from Twitter on January 8th. We'll show you what hasn't been revealed, the erosion of standards within the company in months before J6, decisions by high-ranking executives to violate their own policies, and more against the backdrop of ongoing documented interaction with federal agencies. Okay, so let's break this apart. First of all, no rule is going to be airtight. Sometimes things are going to be case by case. Let's just be charitable here. And also, they're going to interact with federal agencies. I don't know where this idea, this again, American fucking paranoia, this constant fucking culture of fear that just rots their brains. But I don't know what they think. Like, anyway, let's move on. Like even the most reasonable fucking yank you mention the government and they panic. It's just people doing their jobs. So anyway, good luck having a fucking, platform. Again, I could be wrong, but I think that, again, given the last few drops, there's not really probably a lot here that is other than just making bad decisions, okay? And that every tech platform does this. So the first installment covers through period before the election through January 6th. Tomorrow we'll detail, yeah, okay. More and more, yeah, okay. Let's drip feed this content so everyone just makes as much money as possible. Let's just get to the point, okay? Fucking sales bullshit. Okay. Whatever your opinion on the decision to remove Trump that day, the internal... See how they're all grifters? They're all like, yeah, like and subscribe, bye. I got millions of dollars and a direct personal relationship with the world's richest man, but I'm still going to plug my shit. Fuck. Now I'm sitting here for free making no money with better information. It's insane. Anyway... Whatever your opinion on the decision to remove Trump that day, the internal comms at Twitter between January 6th and January 8th have clear historical import, maybe. Even Twitter's employees understood in the moment it was a landmark moment in the annals of speech. I said annals, I know. Is this the first sitting head of state to ever be suspended? Well, yes. Okay. As soon as they finished banning Trump, Twitter execs... The fact that someone at Twitter asked that question is, and the fact that someone thinks that that's what people need to know, it's just how stupid. How much do people need shit spoon-fed? It's like, yeah, we know. Move on. As soon as they finished banning Trump, Twitter execs started processing new power. They prepared to ban future presidents and White House, perhaps even Joe Biden. That's not okay. All right. The new administration, says one exec, will not be suspended by Twitter unless absolutely necessary. So the new administration will not. No, they meant POTUS account, right? Is that what they meant? Hang on, let's have a look. As stated in our Twitter rules, it is clear that another account is being used for the purposes of evading a ban. It is also subject to suspension. For government accounts such as POTUS and White House, we will not suspend those accounts, but will take action to limit their use. However, these accounts will be transitioned over to the new administration in due course and will not be suspended by Twitter unless absolutely necessary to alleviate real-world harm. Yeah. What? Hang on. As soon as they finished banning Trump, they banned Trump's account. So that was basically, okay, if he uses the POTUS account in the meantime with the transition, we may have to ban that account, but that'll be a last resort. Once it's transitioned to Joe Biden, then it's fine. How is it like perhaps even Joe Biden? The framing of this doesn't make any sense. Like, what the fuck are they doing? That's what? They weren't banning Joe Biden. The new administration will not be suspended by Twitter unless absolutely necessary. Yes. Like, because unless something... Okay, anyway. That makes perfect sense. I don't know what's the point here? What, that they had the... Is it... Okay, yes, I can see how if they had the ability to ban the president again or ban Joe Biden, but... Okay, anyway. Ban evasion, like Trump... Anyway. I'm not a journalist. What would I know? Twitter executives removed Trump in... I haven't read this stuff before, so I'm obviously reacting. So Twitter executives removed Trump in part over what one executive called the context surrounding actions by Trump and supporters over the course of the election and, frankly, last 4+ years. Yes, a pattern of behaviour using bots, astroturfing, harassing people, aggressing, getting people, mass reporting. I've got friends who still haven't got their fucking blue check marks back, their accounts back or anything because they ran afoul of these fucking mega fucks. Pattern of behaviour, yes. I don't know what they fucking... In the end, they looked at a broad... This is why you shouldn't have fucking non-tech journos doing tech, like these kinds of issues, because this is just going to fucking... Oh, God. So, Twitter executives removed Trump in part over what one executive calls the context surrounding actions by Trump and supporters. Yes. Over the course of the election and, frankly, last 4+ years. Yes. How is this... In the end, so basically, if you told the truth about actual conduct on the platform in your job, and you signed a don't forget, a lot of these employees signed non-disclosure agreements, okay? I thought non-disclosures worked both ways. So anyway, over the course of the election and frankly last 4+ years, in the end, they looked at a broad picture, but that approach can cut both ways. Hi, Vijaya. I'm working with X on my team to put together a doc to share with you with a POV from research. Yes. Academics with whom we've been working on DJT's language as coded incitement to further violence. Yes. I saw some anti-woke dickhead say, oh, that's proof that they have critical theory. No, it's not. This is a deep understanding or deep lack of understanding of the history of the United States. If you look up the covert support of the Nazi Party, like they filled up Madison Square Garden during World War II, and then they've kind of, this is, again, when you take the least charitable interpretation of these things. Now, look, I'm no fan of this, but I like, because people are so fucking like stupid, and I know how these things are going to be misused and misinterpreted and spun. I am going to defend this, which is, yes, it is coded. But also, I think that obviously that's misused, but at the same time, you like to say that just saying that all this Nazi shit isn't coded hasn't been paying attention to Kanye West and fucking all of this stuff The fact that Trump was literally hanging out with these guys, okay? That represents a problem. And that in the historical context of, covert Nazi shit in the United States, where it became, after World War II, it became sort of obviously frowned upon to overtly support the Nazi party. They started to code that language and they went sort of underground. That's a historical fact. So to turn around and just say that using these words, it makes me question you. Especially if you are aligning with people like James Lindsay or people who are like more and more proving to be actual fucking Nazis. I don't know like as much as I think that the histrionics around everything being fucking fascism and everything being Nazism, that's just idiotic American shit, okay? There's a moral panic on both sides. You got to cut through this and say, even whether he likes it or not, okay? Whether he did it on purpose or not, okay? Proof's in the pudding. Excuse me. The evidence is pretty clear that he's hanging out with fucking Nazis, guys. Like, what the fuck? So anyway, how is that? It is coded, and maybe these guys actually, the people who conduct research on these things don't just do their own research, okay, who come to all the wrong conclusions because they're not social scientists. And then they're not social scientists, but then they say that the social sciences isn't a real science. But they get it all wrong. They don't know what they're doing. So I'm fully prepared to go back on what I say. This is a react. I haven't read it yet. Let's go. So in the meantime, here is our quick take. The decision on whether to pull that particular tweet or use that as a last straw for Trump depends on many factors, including 1, the overall context and narrative in which that tweet lives. Correct. Also remember that they have access to all of those things. So what we saw yesterday with the drop was that they can see DMs, they can see, the networks, they can see who's connected to who. It's the context of all of these things that you saw yesterday in that CRM. It knew, Twitter somewhat knew what was happening. These people are lying about what they were up to. Okay, like what the fuck? Anyway, whatever. I don't know why I'm finding myself defending this, because I shouldn't defend Twitter, because what they did was unethical, but we've got to get to what they actually did rather than this fucking bullshit. This is actually just misrepresenting it, which is, none of this is abnormal. So we currently analyze tweets and consider them at a tweet-by-tweet basis, which does not appropriately take into account the context surrounding it. You can use yelling fire into a crowded theatre example. Context matters, and the narrative that Trump and his friends have pursued over the course of this election, and frankly the last 4 years, must be taken into account when interpreting and analysing that tweet. And 2, the larger question is around our moral imperative. So that's a concern. Moral imperative and decision as a company, which user sentiment should not drive... Sorry, hang on. Let's go. Larger question is around our moral imperative and decision as a company, which user sentiment should not drive based on number 1. Hang on. So user sentiment should not drive based around, what is it? The overall context and narrative in which it lives. I don't understand that sentence. Anyway, I'll have to sort of, speaking of coded language, I don't know. And so I believe that this tweet does violate our rules when taking that historical context plus current climate into account. Okay. I understand what that means. So the bulk of the internal debate leading to Trump's ban took place in those 3 January days. However, the intellectual framework was laid in the months preceding the Capitol riots. The intellectual framework. Here we go. That's a fucking... all the dog whistles, man. It's like, I don't want to... If you don't want people to accuse you of fucking dog whistles, don't do them, man. Fucking hell. Yeah, fucking Lindsay bros are rubbing their hands together, aren't they? Okay, so before J6, Twitter was a unique mix of automated rules-based enforcement, and more subjective moderation by senior executives. As Barry Rice reported, thoroughly and with no context and no explanation, but hey, let's go on. As Barry Weiss reported, the firm had a vast array of tools for manipulating visibility, yes, most of which were thrown at Trump and others pre-J6. Yes, because they behave a certain way. As the election approached, senior executives, perhaps under pressure from federal agencies, with whom they met as more time progressed, yes, because there is a security threat, it's an election, they're the history of election interference and the conduct and the history of this fucking crew using their army of bots and astroturfing and bad faith and bad actors and then lying about it to everyone else so everyone else thinks that they're the victims. It warrants some consulting. So increasingly struggled with rules and began to speak of Vios as pretext to do what they'd likely have done anyway. Well, that's conjecture. You don't know this. Like, in this position, I've said this before. Like, if I was in this position, I can't imagine how I would have. They weren't. You can't win. So if Twitter had assessed the situation without consulting with the federal police, you would have said that they acted unilaterally. If they hadn't acted and incited a riot, okay, and things had gotten worse and escalated, which I think they were likely to do, whether you fucking, again, it's that whole pay attention. Oh, well, he didn't technically say it. Again, they're working in technicalities, okay? When they say the coded shit, this is what they're talking about, okay? Now, I'm obviously a pretty big critic of this fucking misuse of this woke language to, use for censorship and under the form of, like, the guise of disinformation. But the way that this is framed is pretty bad faith, if I'm honest with you. So I'm disappointed in Taibbi for this one so far. So after J6, internal slacks show Twitter executives getting a kick out of intensified relationships with federal agencies. Getting a kick out of. Okay. Yeah. Weirdos. Have any of these people, can I just say, have any of these people actually had a job ever? Like a real job? Like an actual real job where they do something other than this? I do wonder. Have any of them actually had a real job? Because, anyway, here's trust and safety head Yoel Roth. Here we go. They're making him the fucking, victim now, or the perpetrator. From all accounts, I've seen that Yoel Roth has done the right thing that he can think of. He's tried to warn, he's acted in good faith, he stuck around as long as he could. He tried to, ease the transition as best he could, and then they just, whatever. So, again, let's see if there's a fucking, thing that changes my mind, shall we? Yoel Roth, lamenting a lack of generic enough calendar descriptions to concealing his very interesting meeting partners. Yes, because they're in tech. A lot of this stuff is happenstance, and you sit there and every so often you zoom out and you go, oh, okay, this is weird. I didn't expect that. Like when I've talked about this before where I say people who act like these things are just routine and normal, like President Trump tweeted. Okay? That phrase is ridiculous on its face. And that's where anyone who was sort of an early adopter of tech finds that funny. It's in that vein. Like, this is so uncharitable. It's just, it leaves out, what's the end goal here? What the fuck? I tried to be pretty charitable here, but I don't understand. What? Getting a kick out of intensified relationships. It happens. I'm a big believer in calendar transparency. Yes. But I reached a certain point where my meetings became very interesting. Yes. Sensitive to people, and they weren't meeting names generic enough to cover. Yeah. Weren't meeting names generic enough to cover. Anyway, let me know. Yeah. Okay. Weird. Cool. Okay. That's the thing about tech, is that it's weird and cool and horrifying and the mixture of that. That's why people love it so much. It's really interesting that, when you create a product, that it touches certain people in certain ways that you didn't anticipate. I don't see. Anyway. Very boring business meeting that is definitely not about Trump, winky face. Okay. Definitely not meeting with the FBI, I swear. Yeah, it seems like he's just weirded out. Again, nothing that I have seen from him indicates that he's a bad guy at all. Again, I could be wrong. This sounds like insanely, like, I'm trying to see some bad stuff here, guys, but there isn't anything that I can see so far. There's a whole lot of tweets to get through, but I'm saying so far, I haven't, and obviously not just here, but throughout all of this, Vijay are different, okay? But with Yol, I haven't seen any real evidence that he is anything other than someone who disagrees with MAGA fuckheads. And we all know what happens when you do that. I know what happens when you do that. They abuse you and harass you and mischaracterize you and just shout you down. That's all I see happening here. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Anyway, cancel culture. Oh no. Yeah. These initial reports are based on searches for docs linked to prominent executives whose names are already public. They include Roth, former Trust and Policy Chief Vagina Gad, Gaping Vagina, and recently plank walked Deputy General Counsel and former top FBI lawyer Jim Baker. Now, I'm not ignoring the concerns. I'm saying they're not as... There's a charitable way to look at a lot of this stuff, and I can't see... There's nothing here that makes me go, unless you're a complete idiot who's, first of all, never had a real job, second of all, never run a tech company, or started a tech company. Third of all, knows nothing about the tech industry at all. And third of all, like, I don't know what the fuck. I haven't seen anything so far that is terribly controversial other than a fuck up that MAGAs didn't like. Okay? And where they are hypothesizing that if not for this, they would have won the election, which I doubt. I highly doubt anyway. Okay? So, where are we? So one particular Slack channel offers a unique window into the evolving thinking of top officials in late 2020 and early 21. Okay, let's see if there's anything here. So on October 8th, 2020, executives opened a channel called US 2020 XFN Enforcement. Okay, fair enough. So through J6, this would be home for discussions about election-related removals, especially ones that involve high-profile accounts, often called VITs or very important tweeters. Yep, okay. Understandable. That's routine that, certain people would have access. That's how Slack works for us. Okay, so hi everyone. Hang on, what's with the, why is this formatting the way it is? Okay, it must have, Jesus Christ, can you at least format things? Okay, anyway, so starting tomorrow until November 15th, this channel will be used for the following reasons. Trends identified that require scaled investigations, fair point. High-profile accounts escalations that potentially require P2 soft interventions, fair enough. You saw how they fucking behaved themselves. This is exactly what I was saying yesterday about how just once, own it. Own the fact that you are aggressive, rude, mean, and use bots. If one person on that side turned around and said, all right, yeah, we tried our luck and we used bots and, we fucked up, I'm sorry. If one of them copped to that, then I'd be more sympathetic. But they're again, Democrats do it too, but I don't understand. It's just like, what the fuck? This is just Darvo at this point. So, all right, scalable solutions required. Yes, okay, because of the volume of tweets and the, high visibility, and funnily enough, the plan to fucking question the election results the whole fucking time. Edge cases for XFN consultation, highlight tech issues, bugs, outage, Jira tickets. Yeah, Jira tickets is just their project management software. This is an enforcement channel between T&S and TWS to terms of, so I'm guessing that's to trust and safety, and TWS to speed up our response related to election issues over the coming few weeks. GET will start providing a handover starting APAC shift tomorrow. So that's the APAC is my side of the world. Okay, tomorrow. So what that is, they obviously had shifts of people across the world. That's what happens. Like when I did work for one major big tech company with you'd have people parts of the world for support. Well, actually, this is just normal for every tech company, but you'd actually have, when you're working with the support team, you've got, obviously they've got the day shift in America, and then they've got the shift in the UK and like Europe, and then you've got Asia, and then you've got people sort of in the call centers here as well. So South Africa, so you got all of those time zone related shifts. So that's that they had. So let's think about this. So the resources there. This is shit that Taibbi should be explaining, by the way. But anyway, that's what a journalist should be explaining these things. Not just dumping it. It's like, what the fuck? Like, especially dumping them and framing it in a way that implies corruption rather than normal shit. But anyway, I thought you might want to know that that's really cool with the technical support, which is that it's often time zone based, right? So but what they did was they had a team of people dedicated to monitoring all of this stuff 20 around the clock, okay, worldwide, because obviously, you know, you obviously got Russia, you got all these factors. So they had a dedicated support team coming online. So I just wanted to explain what this means. So before we get to this stuff, because it's quite confusing for people who don't know. But that's why if you call, especially in Australia, if they don't, if you're calling, you know, that's why you find that call centres will sort of reroute to South Africa or to after hours and stuff, because again, people got to, you know, can't be paying overtime to people and night shifts and stuff. It's just, so anyway, it's interesting stuff. So again, this is all the stuff that they strip out because they never held a real job, never had to build a team of this, never had to they just can sit around and have an opinion. They just sit around and moan about stuff. Okay. It's like, fucking, your job is to sit on Zoom calls and defame people for a living and make millions of dollars doing it. Some people actually have to make things work. Okay. Always a critic. I fucking hate journalists more and more. I don't know what's happening to Taibbi here. What the fuck? This is showing you how shitty, even the good journalists are so shit. So anyway, so GET will start providing a handover starting APAC shift tomorrow using the following template handover. Next shift, Europe. So they had teams in Europe, Asia Pacific, and North America. Okay, so then they have those teams, open escalations, none. Okay, so here we go. So it looks like that's the template handover. So they had every shift handover between EMEA, which is Europe, APAC, and North America. They have a template that's for each team, and they would have documented which are like the open escalation. So what is sort of open, what is notes from the shift. And I'm reading this in real time, so I apologize. So can you please make sure everyone on your team is within the channel? The teams that we included are as follows: site integrity, safety policy, product trust, safety operations, media ops. Yep. Okay. So site integrity is the actual like security, physical code security of the platform. Safety policy, so that if there's any like things that need clarifying, the safety policy would be there. Product trust, I imagine that's some variation or that product trust. I don't know what that is, but obviously it's product team. Safety operations, which is your immediate support team. Media ops, which would be your comms team. So if any major event happens, they're ready to be able to communicate with the public what's going on, or the media. Global escalation team. So that is just, obviously that's obvious. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. So, okay, yes. Sounds like they had their shit together. Wow. Congratulations. Twitter had more than 3 people in a trench coat and they had their shit together. I'm impressed. Global company had global teams during a very critical election with a pattern of behaviour from a fuckwit president and his followers. Okay. See, the thing is they focus so much on Trump, but they don't focus on the systematic, constant bullshit and aggression from his followers, okay, which were all astroturfed, made everyone's life a living fucking hell, like radicalized people who still haven't come back post-COVID. They've lost their fucking minds and not one of them owns it. They just play victim and pretend, oh yeah, no, well, he didn't say those exact words, so we're off the hook for everything. It's like, oh my God. It's like fucking someone who beats up his wife and family, but they get him on a charge and he fucking argues, oh, well, I didn't punch her in that specific minute on that specific day. My God. That's the MO. I've told you about this before. So There was at least some tension between safety. Sorry, my screen, because I had to crop it, I may scroll. So there was at least some tension between safety operations. Here we go, it explains what it is. A larger department whose staffers used a more rules-based process for addressing issues like porn, scams, and threats. This is what I was saying yesterday about sort of those lower level support. They follow a checklist. So they're not there to interpret things. They're not there to interpret what the policy means or whether they think it's. They take personal judgment out of the fucking equation, and they just, for the things that are, so AI sort of determines part of it, the first part, level sort of, let's call it level 0.5, like that first high volume, mass reporting. Okay, then you've got level 1, level 2 support generally. I don't know what, again, these guys, tech tends to make up job titles, so it's hard to know sort of whether they had level 1, level 2, level 3, but you've generally got that structure, okay? And so the escalations team sort of manage those sort of things. And then over that, you've got the policy team who clarify things. So the policy team act like, so things would not generally reach the policy team or the trust and safety team until, people were confused or there were multiple different interpretations. But at that first level, okay, so something that's clear porn, clear scams, threats, but those things have like quite narrow criteria. They're quite specific, and like that's actually a sign of a good team, is that they will silo that stuff. Okay, so but what's really interesting is the way that Slack plays a role here, which is that you've actually got a Slack channel that's between teams. Okay, so in a traditional corporate setting, you'd have a silo. This is a really cool thing about tech, but it's also something that has its strengths and its weaknesses, because you've got sort of stakeholders. Stakeholder management becomes very tricky in a place like Twitter, because you'd normally have that sort of linear reporting. So you'd have AI level 1, level 2, level 3. You got the manager, then you got that person's boss, and then that person's boss. Okay, that's what the most of the sort of older corporate, anti-woke, anti-DEI people, they're very much in favor of that kind of hierarchy, okay? That hierarchical sort of old school corporate structure that you'd probably, the corporate ladder, if you will, okay? In tech, this is another thing that's really interesting, that if you're not in tech, you don't understand, which is that in startup culture, there was a sort of shift. So basically tech, I've talked about some of the history of tech before, but a lot of the way that techs, in the first few years when these companies were starting, there was this strong desire to do pretty much the opposite. There was this whole script around, disruption, being different, doing things differently. And they kind of, again, they do it because they got America brain. They thought that they could capitalism their way out of capitalism. It's just, one of those things. But the corporate structure, like at IBM, again, you've got to understand the historical context of a lot of these businesses, which is that, that new tech, so Web 2.0, post-dot-com bubble, okay? But pre that, it was sort of IBM and Microsoft and, Cisco, Oracle, those big corporate structures, right? They very much took on that old school corporate structure that existed, and so, working with the MIT, that sort of old boys club of tech, but they were working, obviously with defense, the Department of Defense, all that sort of stuff. It's really funny how these guys act like working with the Department of Defense. Department of Defense. You know what I mean? Working with the military isn't like a big part of the internet, given that it was built on that. Like, again, these people show that they don't actually, this is why I get annoyed with non-tech people who don't know about tech and the history of tech. They take it on face value, and it's like, you do know that the internet was built on military technology. Okay, it was designed that way. Every innovation that occurred was because of so the history. Okay, I won't go into too much of this because it's quite derailing. Okay, but a large portion of the technology in terms of why the internet sort of initially occurred, I suppose, or the need for it, was post World War II. You couldn't actually they had to have their like naval ships a certain distance away from each other and away from the land. So they needed to figure out ways to remotely control and issue commands to naval vessels, because again, America, everybody, okay, they needed to figure out, rather than like the rule of don't put your ships there, they went, okay, so how can we do this? This is fucking typical fucking shit. If you want to know the theme here, how can we work just within the rules and then pretend with plausible deniability? Like, that's the theme here, right? And so, but they went, okay, so how can we park our naval ships, a few meters inside the boundary of where we agreed we wouldn't go, right? This is post-World War II. How can we go just within that perimeter but develop technology so that we can fucking do that? That's sort of where it came from, right? It's just it's really interesting. Sorry, I'm laughing because I just made that connection because it's quite funny. But, that just within the rules thing, it's like, we're not touching. You said not to touch it, right? That's the American way, to work just inside the rules and then blame the individuals. Rapid implausible deniability because you are working just within the rules, okay? And this is why American contract law, especially corporate American contract law, is it gets very much into like over a comma, over, like a typo, over whatever. Whereas in sort of traditional common law, like in like the UK, Canada, Australia, that sort of stuff, obviously statutory interpretation has the golden rule in it. And I'm not saying, again, I'm simplifying, but I find that's one of those things when you study law. American law seems very, very heavily driven on semantics, okay? And a lot of that is just, again, not in all cases, obviously, but you'll see like the differences in the Supreme Court versus, say, the higher courts here. So anyway, I find that funny and interesting, that those trends through history. Again, this is something that Marx said to do, which is to look at what is trending over time, what the real pattern is, okay? None of this fucking other stuff. So anyway, moving on. But yeah, I just thought that these teams are like, I can't see anything here, but you just need to understand that those first level teams, they don't have any discretionary power. Okay, so what we saw yesterday with the CRM that they had was that, first of all, they probably wouldn't have had access to the whole master, everything on every account. They probably had what was relevant to them to do their job. Again, that's a combination of cybersecurity, but also, not to sort of to take out a lot of that stuff at the low level is to take the human out of this stuff and to train the AI. So a lot of the lower level staff that are paid in, lower wages in offshore places there. And also, again, because they offshore a lot and there's, language gaps and cultural gaps and stuff like that, they take the human error, they take the human judgment component out. So what would have happened maybe at this lower level, now we'll move through, maybe I'm wrong, but what would have maybe happened here is that it was highly prescriptive. Let's use my account as an example. If I'd been mass reported, if I was like blocked, see, this is where the role of block lists comes in, because if you saw on that CRM, there was the number of people who block you as part of the account. Did you see that sort of 0.04, or whatever? That's a number that represents how many people block you. And that's why I've said before about the abuse of block lists, because that metric is actually meaningful to sort of low-level Twitter support. How many people block you indicates, whether you're a good citizen or not, okay, whether you behave yourself. Now, I found myself on those block lists, okay, and that's how external actors or external bad actors might be able to get around the platform in a way that is non-conspiratorial, okay? But also in that CRM, what they would have done was, siloed these things, but also, again, just know that these low-level teams are quite prescriptive because of, various factors, including offshore, where they're just ticking boxes. They're just saying, yep, based on this signal, either honor the ban. They're basically just, think of, literally just plugging in the whole, in the 60s, the women and the telephone thing is just plug, direct. They're directing your call. Is it going to be escalated? Is it not? Is it going to be that? Is it going to be that? I can now see roughly through, even just from that one thing, okay, that I read out and interpreted for you, how someone like me would fall afoul of that, okay? Everything that I've suspected and said was happening, because I do tend to be charitable towards, because I don't envy, their job's difficult. Now, again, I think that they may expose some, let's wait and see if they expose some major corruption or conjecture based on opinion. Let's see. Again, no fan of Vijaya, okay? Because I had been, the thing is, the reason why I'm trying to be charitable, but also the reason why I don't fully defend it is because they had no real process for someone like me who was trying to alert them to the fact that they made a mistake with me, okay? They made a mistake and I was being targeted, and they could have, and you know, because I was sort of adding Vijay, I was adding y'all, I was, you know, at Twitter Safety, at Twitter Design. Like for the last 5 years, I've been trying to actually tell them and alert them that this is a problem. And it's like, and again, part of that is noise, right? I imagine that Twitter Safety, and again, because of these MAGA fucks and all of the fucking bots and all of these things that happen, people get lost in the noise, flooding it with shit. The Steve Bannon method, okay, flooding everything. If you've tried to go into the mentions here, okay, if you tried to go into anything and you just see how many bots and just flooding, like this, if I have to see that Matthew McConaughey fucking cigarette meme one more fucking time, it's like, just stop. I just want to see what's happening. So anyway, they need to fix that. I need to be able to filter that out. I do like reader view. This is reader view on the app. So I just wanted to explain that, because this just validates what I want to explain to you, that none of this is necessarily, controversial. So let me just, hang on, let me adjust this. So there we go. The latter group, I'll have to keep it on. The latter group were a high-speed Supreme Court of moderation. Yeah, okay, fair enough. You issuing content rulings on the fly. So this is good, because actually when Facebook had decided to do the oversight board, I actually praised that, and I said, well, they need to have a better process for when they make a mistake. Okay. The latter group were a high-speed Supreme Court of moderation, issuing content rulings on the fly, often in minutes and based on guesses. Yes, because it's fast-moving, high volume. It's fucking how many billions of tweets every day? Okay. So often in minutes and based on guesses, gut calls, and even Google searches. Even in cases involving the president. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Breaking news: 50,000 Ohio voters getting wrong absentee ballots, out of control. A rigged election. At no point. Okay, so at no point does anyone does he? I would be more charitable to Trump, and like I've said, to Trump and his supporters, if they weren't. Well, it's like you. You're the president of the United States. You're saying that there was a rigged election. You're going to cause a panic in people. This is not just about a fuckwit tweeting as the president. This, as a political scientist who knows quite a lot about sort of global politics and the geopolitical from an Australian point of view, okay, external to America. I mean, obviously, we're all kind of sick of all of it, right? But I think Americans don't understand that a lot of us just think that you're in the throes of collapse, that America's collapsing, that the sitting president is turning around and saying, this has geopolitical consequences as well. It has an impact. It is not nothing to tweet these things. And I think that I would be more sympathetic and the people on Twitter Trust and Safety tend to be, like that was why with the thing that leaked this morning, not leaked, the statement from the Trust and Safety crew, nothing I really, I don't disagree with what they said. And the only thing that I saw that was like, oh shit, you're taking advice from the but ADL are sort of, compromised, corrupt, that they obviously, the blame lays at the ADL, because a lot of these tech companies have, like fact checkers, ADL, a lot of the problems that exist are not necessarily with the tech companies themselves, but with the third-party organizations who've been corrupted by dark money and dark donations and, have a particular agenda or, in bed, like the ADL is pretty well established at not being as truthful as one would like. okay, or sort of going after gamers or, all that sort of stuff, okay? Same thing, like a lot of people rely on things like Amnesty. They rely on these organisations to give them good information. And so, again, that's all I'm seeing is, again, it's not, if someone comes to you as a tech company and especially in the wake of something like Cambridge Analytica, especially in the wake of all of that stuff, and they go, well, we're engineers. See, this is what I find interesting is that the safety team go, okay, well, we're engineers. We're out of our depth here. What we are going to do is defer to the experts and defer to the organisations who know best. Now, those organisations, obviously, we've seen that there's a lot of corruption in those organisations and those NGOs and, all that sort of stuff. But again, I can't see anything malicious here that is anything, again, and it just requires an understanding of people who work in tech and STEM lords who don't understand that the social sciences matters. Like, there's nothing, but also that corruption with NGOs and those NGOs are the problem because they're getting, obviously those NGOs are able to fundraise and they're able to get a lot of money and they're able to get a lot of sort of, the Stonewall stuff with Tavistock. You see how these things sort of fail, which is that, one lobby group has the ear of, a lot of different companies. They present themselves as the authority, but they give them, they make sure that, they sort of, but the people who react on their advice are doing the right thing. Like they're trying to do the right thing. They just, those organisations, this is that sort of, I've talked about this before, that stealth authoritarianism strategy where, corruption happens at all levels, but it's all I see here. Again, let's keep reading. I could be wrong, but so far, all I have seen is people doing their jobs and all I have Vijaya as well. I don't know. God, I wish I could talk to her. Fuck, I wish I could talk to her and go, what was you? I hope she writes a book on her side of the story. Because there are parts of it where she feels a bit like she's trying to protect a lot of different people. She has to be the bad guy. A lot of the reason why they're picking on her is sort of racial, right? I don't and call her vagina mostly because it's funny, but at the same time, you can't ignore the racial element and the misogyny that fucking, the fact that there's a brown woman in charge of trust and safety at Twitter doesn't help her in the eyes of misogynists and racists and bullies. Let's put it that way. Okay. Like I know that there's all these people that they just bully me for being a woman. I imagine there's a multiplier there. So the latter group, so based on Google, even in cases involving the president. So this tweet, breaking news, 50,000 Ohio voters getting wrong absentee ballots, out of control rigged election. Is the president of the United States, the outgoing president, saying that there was election fraud, that it was rigged? You don't think that that's a fucking serious, if you think, a rigged election would be enough to be in violation, right? If the claim of fact were inaccurate, yes. So all I said, they say here, okay, but it looks like that's true. So 50,000 over, yeah. So look, y'all has just said, okay, is it true or not true? Is he deliberate? Again, they have to work on these things and figure out whether, but it looks like that's true. Also, the date is October 9th, so that was before the election. Sorry, my mistake. So this was the Ohio election. Now, the thing that's interesting about the Ohio election, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me, was the thing that also where acronym and those other agencies were doing dodgy business as well. So that was, there was smoke and, to indicate a fire. But again, y'all seems to act in good faith. I can't see anything anyway. So during this time, executives were also clearly liaising with federal enforcement and intelligence agencies about moderation of election-related content. Fair enough. Okay, that's a real thing. In the wake of Cambridge Analytica, and because of Trump and Trump supporters, it was necessary. If one person would just come out and go, yeah, we understand, I'd be a little more forgiving, but they fucked it. They got caught. Well, we're still at the start of reviewing the Twitter files. We're finding out more about these interactions every day. But that's also, again, I'm not going to minimize it, but I'm suspending disbelief because I don't know what to say about that because it's necessary. You're going to have to be in constant communication with these things. I don't. Anyway. Policy Director Nick Pickles is asked if they should say Twitter detects misinfo through ML, human review, and partnerships with outside experts. So machine learning, okay, that's AI. Human review, which is, like I said, that first level of support, and also policy team interpreting it, but also partnerships with outside experts, as in like ADL, Stonewall, those sorts of places, right? So the employee asks, I know that's been a slippery process. Not sure if you want our public explanation to hang on that. And that's also because lunatics think that they're in cahoots. Conspiracy. Remember, we're working in the shadow of QAnon here, and they're going to go, who are those experts? You can't win. So, are you comfortable with marketing talking about misinfo by saying that we detect it through ML, human review, and partnerships with outside experts? So it's the partnerships with outside experts that they're like, comms are going, should we say this? And they're like, oh no, that's been a slippery process, so not sure if you want our public explanation to hang our hat on that. QAnon, okay? It's fucking, they're conspiracy theorists. So can we just say partnerships? E.g., not sure we'd describe the FBI, DHS as experts or some NGOs that aren't academic. Fair call. Pickles quickly asks if they could just say partnerships. After a pause, he says, e.g., not sure we'd describe the FBI, DHS as experts. Yes. Yeah? What on earth? Okay. What's the story here? So this post about the Hunter Biden laptop situation shows that it's amazing what people find interesting versus what I just go, that's not interesting. I don't. What I want to see is the data I would like to see the reports and data that is informing their decision. Like when I did my FOI request with the ABC about what data and stuff led to the decision to call, women vulva owners, okay, in breach of their editorial guidelines. And it turned out that it was an online survey, which, there was no real data behind it, and that was interesting information. I want to know how the decisions were made. It's not, anyway. So this post about the Hunter Biden laptop situation shows that Roth not only met weekly with the FBI and DHS, that's the Department of Homeland Security, yes, but with the office. So your opposition is that they're meeting. Well, what's the opposition to this? That criminals get caught. Now, there's going to be false positives, okay? But the false positives are for people like me, not for people like libs of TikTok who are bullies, spread lies. And I don't understand, do they want, I don't understand. What's the ask? What's the ask here? What do they want? So, but with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Okay, so I only have an issue here when there's nudges and people, being manipulated and not making decisions with their consent. But some of this stuff is necessary. So Yol has checked in. Here's what they said. What's new for you since our last check-in? Hack materials exploded. We blocked the NYP story. That's New York Post. Then we unblocked it, but said the opposite. Then said we unblocked it, and now we're in a messy situation where our policy is in shambles. Comms is angry, yes. See, look, there's people within Twitter that reporters think we're idiots, yes, and we're refactoring an exceedingly complex policy 18 days out from the election. Yeah. In short, FML. Twitter doesn't come out of this. They don't come out of this looking bad. They really don't. So this bot application, I'm guessing Yold has checked in. Here's what they said. So Yold checked into a meeting and they recorded the meeting. I'm guessing there's some way of recording. Anyway, we'll see what that is. Okay. So I don't know whether that's just I'm curious about that bot. What that is. Interesting. Is it that he goes to a meeting and it records his notes, so he just dictates what happened in the meeting or something, right? So in short, FML. Weekly sync with FBI, DHS, DNI, re-election security. Again, like I said yesterday, it's like bank robbers complaining there's a security guard at the door. It's like, well, stop robbing banks, and then I don't understand, like, what the fuck? Like, this is not about speech. This is about them not wanting safeguards at all in place that protect users and don't fuck things up. Like, this is not looking good. This is actually leading me to think that you really do want to get rid of democracy. Like, what the? Anyway, so the meeting happened about 15 minutes after the aforementioned hacked materials implosion. The government declined to share anything useful when asked. Monthly meeting with FBI. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so he met weekly with the FBI and DHS, but with the Office of the Director General. Monthly with the FBI. Comms are mad. Remember? Comms was frustrated. The media thinks we're idiots. See, there's a what? Okay. I don't know what the story is. Maybe when we get to the end, there'll be a story. I can't see Twitter, like, Roth doesn't come out of this looking bad. Roth sounds like a very good stakeholder engagement guy and nothing more. Like, anyway, Roth's report to FBI, DHS, DNI is almost farcical in its self-flagellating tone. No. What? He's reporting back and actually saying we look like fuckwits. What's the story here, Matt? Like, what the fuck? Okay, some of Roth's later slacks indicate his weekly confabs with federal law enforcement involve separate meetings. Okay. Here, he ghosts the FBI and DHS respectively to go first to an Aspen Institute thing, then takes a call with Apple. Okay, so hey there, I have to miss the FBI DHS meetings today, unfortunately. Saw you're on the invites for both. Can you give me a quick readout if there's anything interesting that comes up? Sure thing. Yeah, and it's just, okay, he's the head. Delegate, can't go to this meeting. Okay, yeah, just have conflicts at both times. An Aspen Institute thing this morning on vaccines that I have to present at, and then a call with Apple to avoid us getting kicked out of the App Store during the Department of Homeland Security one. What's the story here? Here, the FBI sends reports about a pair of tweets, the second of which involves a former Tippecanoe country? Tippecanoe County? Tippecanoe. I love American place names, man. They're fucking great. Indiana councillor and Republican named John Basham claiming between 2 and 25% of ballots by mail are being rejected for errors. Okay. So we just got a report from the FBI concerning 2 tweets related to the shredding of mail-in ballots. Apostrophes, guys. This is proven to be false via this PolitiFact. Again, you know, they're relying on third-party fact checkers. So where this fails in process is anyone's guess. I believe it was deemed no VIO on numerous occasions. The FBI second report concerned this tweet by John Basham. Okay. So editorial, the Democrats are in complete panic as their massive push for vote by mail is backfiring on them. 2 things are unfolding. An unexpected number of registered Republicans are returning ballots. Yeah. Between 2 and 25% of ballots by mail are being rejected for errors. Okay. See, if you want to be taken seriously, writing everything in sentence case really doesn't help your cause. That's the formula. See, this is the thing where I find it interesting because my eye, after years and years of this, looks like they probably astroturfed it. They probably had groups of people with DMs where this guy would, I'd want to look at the retweets on this thing. And I'd actually want to look at the numbers around this tweet. I will guarantee you that there's a whole astroturfing movement underneath it and that there's a bunch of blue checks and shared people just, because again, once you understand the research around the way that this, these disinformation networks work, both Democrats and Republican, right? And all other special interests, okay? It could be anybody, right? But in this instance, they would have a number of different groups, like chat groups with like 10, 20 individual accounts in them. Some of them bots, some of them real, okay? But what they do is like MLM, they will sort of, move up. What they'll do is they'll try to, get the sort of low-level groups retweeting and sharing this thing, making a stink, all that sort of thing. Then they move up the rung. So once that sort of gets a certain number of retweets and likes and gets some traction, the next level will move up. So they'll sort of, so they'll launder this credibility and this story and rumors, and eventually it'll move up to the sort of high-profile blue check accounts. Talked about how Tristan Snell and media and Midas Touch and Media Matters and stuff do the exact same thing. But what they do is they launder bullshit through low-grade accounts, bots, combination of bots, legitimate accounts, but they promise you influence and subscribers and, we help each other out. And what they do is they basically just, amplify each other's shit. But it's basically like an MLM thing, so that the people at the top can say, oh, I received this. This is where I think you look at when they go, well, the ADL, Media Matters, Midas Touch, these things, they are presented as the authorities, right, and the credible source, but they clean it up. It's like money laundering. They clean up the fucking information before it gets there, so that then they can go, according to Media Matters, this happened because you've got all this social proof underneath it. So what I imagine when they were looking at the signals of this tweet, now again, I'm reacting to it. The information, hopefully, Mr. Taibbi, who's been paid an awful lot of money and earns an awful lot of money and, doing journalism, I'm sure he'll explain this to you. But I can see how a lot of these signals, what I would like to see is whether he actually shows the moderation CRM for this, for this particular tweet. Oops, did I go? Hang on. Let's just, where was I? Hang on, sorry, I lost the thread. Let's just go back to reader mode. Hang on. Okay, where are we? Let's go. Sorry about this. I knocked my phone. Okay, so where are we? So this tweet. So I can see how on its face, it's got the American flag. It's written in a style that is roughly synonymous with a lot of these sort of, clickbait stuff. All those things, lots and lots of different signals. Like we talked about that yesterday with the signals, right? There's lots and lots of different things. So the FBI flagged the tweet. Okay. So the FBI flagged tweet then got circulated in the enforcement Slack. Okay, so someone went, okay, this has been flagged. Let's talk about it. Twitter cited PolitiFact to say the story was proven to be false. Okay, so did PolitiFact do their job? So then noted the second was already deemed no VIO on numerous occasions. Okay, so here we go. The group then decides to apply a learn how voting is safe and secure label because one commenter said it's totally normal to have a 2% error rate, which is true. Okay. Roth then gives the final go-ahead to the process initiated by the FBI. I think we can use the mail-in voting label for this one as is. So they made it, okay. I don't disagree with that. When in doubt, because there was a lot of stuff that was in doubt here and I would have erred on the side of caution too. A lot of this stuff, there's no winning moves. It seems like Yoel has kind of done, in a difficult situation, he's erred on the side of speech. He's erred on the side of keeping stuff up and erred on the side of contextualizing as best he can under a lot of pressure, juggling lots of meetings, having to make a lot of decisions, everyone fucking being on him, okay. He doesn't come out of this looking bad. Again, whatever. So examining the entire election enforcement Slack, we didn't see one reference to moderation requests from the Trump campaign, the Trump White House, or Republicans generally. Good. We looked, they may exist, we were told they do. However, they were absent here. Okay. That's good. So in one case, former Arizona Governor Mike Huckabee joke tweets about mailing in ballots for his deceased parents and grandparents. Yeah. This inspires a long Slack that reads like a Titania McGrath parody. I agree it's a joke, concedes a Twitter employee, but he's also literally admitting in a tweet a crime. Okay, let's just keep reading and see how we go. So the group declares Huck's an edge case, which is true. Because one of those things is election integrity. You know, a lot of these things, you know, are held together by trust. Okay, so the group declares Huck's an edge case, and though one notes we don't make exceptions for jokes or satire. I understand, because people don't understand jokes, especially radicalized people who have lost their minds, okay? Remember who we're dealing with. We're dealing with MAGA freaks, okay, and QAnon weirdos and, you know, people, like we're dealing with that, okay? We're dealing with Blue Anon and QAnon who are all engaged in a 24/7 moral panic, right? Okay, so the group declares Huck's an edge case, and though one notes we don't make exceptions for jokes or satire, okay, which again, it's not, they wouldn't do that if it was if the context wasn't delicate. So they ultimately decide to leave him be because we've poked enough bears. 33, could still mislead people, the humour averse group. Well, no, because we know this, that when it's text, when it's coming from a politician, when it's coming from someone who, you know, like that, okay, it's not clear that they're joking. What are you doing, Taibbi? What? Why are you framing this like this? I mean, we know, like, I know that Musk is like, I don't see it. I don't see it. And I've been very critical of Twitter, but I don't see what you're saying. Like, there's a completely plausible, charitable way to look at this that is far more likely. But they ultimately decide to leave him be because we've poked enough bears. Exactly. They can't win. Yeah, I could see us taking action under misleading claims that cause confusion about the established laws, regulations, procedures, and methods of a civic process, which exists because of these people. Again, they're bank robbers. They're fucking, you know, complaining that there's a security guard at the door. But it's one that we could really label in a useful way. So it's removal of a stupid and ill-advised joke or nothing. I may be inclined not to remove without a report from voting authorities, given it's been a while since he tweeted and virtually all of the replies I'm seeing are critical counter speech. Is tagged these guys. What do you think? Okay, so I tend to agree. I feel like it's an edge case and we've poked through enough bears recently. I am really glad that we get to see the actual fucking conversation, because the way that Taibbi's framing this is, what's the ask here? I just saw this, looking at the replies now to get a feel for how much, to get a feel for how much confusion is being generated. So they're just trying to get a sense of like whether people are getting the joke or not. Quick glance indicates that people aren't confused, but I have concerns. Under the policy, here we go. All right, let's go. So where are we? I have concerns. Under the policy, we don't make exceptions for jokes or satire. So while I doubt that Huck was really this stupid and is joking, I'm inclined to say that it should come down. I wonder how much of it is an attempt to play the ref prior to the congressional hearing, in that the goal is to get censored. But yeah, as Patrick says, the policy didn't have that carve out. So yeah, so they acknowledge actually here that the goal is to get censored so that they can create this Streisand effect, so that they can fucking run with a narrative, right? Which is true. The thrust of the joke seems to be that mail-in ballots are for the fraudulent votes, so I could see an argument for a mail-in voting label, but absent confusion, I'd also be inclined to leave the joke alone. Yeah, okay, good. I'm actually, can I say I'm pleasantly surprised about this. So Roth suggests moderation, even in this absurd case, could depend on whether or not the joke results in confusion. This seemingly silly case actually foreshadows serious later issues. Does it? Okay. In the docs, execs often expand criteria to subjective issues like intent. Well, no, because intent is something that can be measured by behaviour and a pattern of behaviour, because they have all of these signals. So they do, they know what, this is the context of this, which is that because bad actors on the platforms operate just underneath the rules and with, plausible deniability built in, quibbling, splitting, fucking distraction, noise, flooding it with shit, all of that stuff. Twitter actually do have some knowledge about intent, because intent can actually be measured in terms of behavior, who they're connected to, previous strikes, how many people block them, all that sort of stuff. You see what I'm saying? This is a failure of process. I can't see how these guys are to blame for what looks like a fairly good. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by the process. I thought that it was worse. So unless you are completely, I'm more concerned that Elon Musk has been fucking cued. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. There's no... seriously, someone intervened with Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. Stat. They've got the wrong people around them. Fucking hell. Because nobody who... anyway. So, in the docs, execs often expand criteria to subjective issues like intent. Yes, a video is authentic, but why was it shown? Yeah. Who did it come from? Knowing what we know about this process, which is that they create these AstroTurf movements with layers, with MLM, okay? So they know about this. I find that interesting, that they know about these processes where they have 100 groups of DMs of people in groups of 10 who are amplifying all this stuff. They create a video. Andy No does this. They create a video that's out of context, and then you go and watch the full video and you go, okay, that makes more sense. They do that on the other side as well. And they create, Media Matters do this with Joe Rogan clips, okay? They'll chop it out of context, and then they'll amplify it and amplify it and amplify it, then move to the next level, then move to the next level. Then people start tagging, that's where the journalists are in the mid-level, okay? The sort of low-level funk piece, bad bots that I've been talking about. And then over time, those ideas this is the Fox News model. Network Propaganda is the book that you want to read here. But then they sort of wash it and launder the story, and then it gets to the top, right? This was what happened when I went viral. The same thing, those networks, they just push it up the ladder. This is a known strategy and a known thing. So knowing intent, it's like, well, you're deliberately stripping this of context because, yes, the video is authentic, but why was it shown? That is something that you can actually measure for the most part. Yes. Is it prone to bias? Yes. Okay. But both sides do it. All sides do it. That's just Disinfo 101, is to create these fucking, clips. So they can actually assess that. It's not subjective, actually. They're not subjective. Intent is not subjective. Intent is actually something, again, that can actually be... Now, in terms of intent, in terms of the legal interpretation of intent, that's something that requires... that's also measurable. Like, again, these have, what do you want? Like, intent is something that is established both in law, like criminal law. Like, the difference between murder and manslaughter is intent. That's something that can be measured, can be assessed, has rules around it. Okay. Like, that's not subjective. That is something that is established and orientation. Okay. Was a banned tweet shown to condemn or support? Yeah, okay. Or reception, did a joke cause confusion? And again, you got to understand the broader strategy here, which is the Bannon strategy, the Trump strategy, flood it with shit. He's on the record. Flood people with noise and shit. That's what the MAGAs do. It's what Fox does. They create these bullshit manufactured rage wars to get everyone fucking distracted from the fact that this is... Like, causing confusion is it's not subjective. That's something where we know this is occurring. So this reflex will become key in J6. But these things are all measurable. Like, this is stuff I've been talking about for a long time. So in another example, Twitter employees prepare to slap a mail-in voting is safe warning label on a Trump tweet about a postal screw-up in Ohio before realising the events took place, which meant the tweet was factually accurate. Okay. Trump just posted these two tweets, blah, blah, blah. Not sure what the process is for Get. Are we expected to do policy comms right up for this? Okay. CC till you're... Yes, I was in bed when this happens. And this is another thing, right, which is that Trump and a lot of his crew, they do a lot of this stuff while the main execs and main people are asleep, which again, that seems like it's relevant. He does stuff when people are asleep because he first of all wants to be in the news cycle the next day, but also, then it ends up being bumped to the EMEA team or the Australian team or the offshore team. Again, these guys know this stuff. They know how to get around the rules and how to get it so that some poor third world fuck has to assess the tweets at 3 a.m. It's not he's on the toilet tweeting necessarily, even though that's a big part of it. It's also strategic. Like, people really underestimate how much these guys know what they're doing. And again, unless you also know what you would do in this situation if you're a strategist or whatever, you can this is what I've been doing, is reverse engineering like what I would do if I had no conscience, right? It's not difficult to do. So I've been on PTO, so not 100% up to speed. My understanding in both cases is the events took place and that the commentary by POTUS is his opinion related to those real events, so there wouldn't be any labelling action violation on our side. Yeah, those are factually accurate. Okay. Which is, again, that's policy. That's fair enough. They've been surprisingly charitable here. So very well done on speed. Trump was being visibility filtered as late as a week before the election. But again, I think that a lot of that was because of the behaviour of his followers, not so much him. Again, I err on the side of them, the fact that they have access to a lot more information than we do, a lot more signals. I've talked about that before. And, they have access to these things. It's not necessarily biased necessarily, okay? That stuff is quite, yes, they're probably trying to, I don't know. People aren't aware of their own biases necessarily, right? That's going to be a problem at Twitter. The fact that that's a real problem. But this isn't evidence of a conspiracy by any stretch. Okay, so here, senior execs didn't appear to have a particular violation, but still worked fast to make sure a fairly anodyne Trump tweet couldn't be replied to, shared, or liked. So an anodyne Trump tweet there's no such thing. He's the president of the United States. He's a fuckwit. He's inflammatory. He can cause a major geopolitical event. The fact that Taibbi is minimising, this is the thing that's broken with America. This differentiation, this is that they have no concept of the global and the only thing that trickles down in anything is American fucking bullshit. And, but this can cause major geopolitical event. It can empower millions and millions and billions of people to fucking have an uprising. There is no such thing as an anodyne Trump tweet when you're the sitting why are they minimizing this? I don't get what they're trying to say. This just shows a fundamental lack of understanding at the top levels of journalism. Remember, this is, Lorenz is no better. They're all shit. None of them know that this is actually done. I'm impressed that they've actually done a really good job. Hire me, fuckers. I'm better. But that would require telling the truth about the fact that, these things So anyway, let's go. So, what's the team's recommendation? He's asking what the team. He's a consult. He seems quite a decent. Anyway, thank you. Agree with the recommendations. Flagging right now with leadership given its POTUS. We'll set up a call. Can we use a new doc per P2 review? Okay. When you're talking about Trump tweets being anodyne, but these internal Twitter messages. Very well done on speed. Yeah, because they had to make a swift decision. The group is very pleased the Trump tweet is dealt with quickly. Yes. Hang on. So let's see. Who said it? Was it the team leader saying, well done, team? Let me guess. Probably. Did you still want to do a call? No, I can speak. Happen to already be talking to everyone involved, so no need for a meeting. Going to apply the EDR now. Is there a thread already with comms? Drafting it up now. Well done on speed, folks. What this is all designed for and a huge positive for the platform. Okay, that could have been worded differently. But at the same time, I imagine morale was a big thing here, which is he was probably congratulated. Again, my job, because I know that this will be spun in the least charitable way by the Fuckwits. Okay, this is the Fuckwit edition, where I hate these fuckwits. They don't deserve my praise. They have treated me like shit. They make millions from disinformation and abuse and will never fucking cop to it. They are bank robbers and fucking robber barons who complain about every fucking piece of, like, every security guard outside the door, but leaving out the fact that they're there because of them, okay, and their conduct and their bullying and their harassment. You know, like, I have no choice but to sort of break through that for anybody who might, you know, because I also know that nobody's going to do this detailed, in-depth, like, stuff anywhere else, and no one's going to watch it, but it's there on the record. So one day, if someone wants to hire me, then they can. The seemingly innocuous follow-up, probably because it was, a seemingly innocuous follow-up involved a tweet from actor real James Woods. This has been weird. Okay, so whose ubiquitous presence in argued over Twitter data sets is already a Twitter files in joke. Yeah, so Twitter is suppressing this tweet by the president. Here's a screen grab. Fair enough? Okay. So afterwards, angrily quote tweeted about Trump's warning label, Twitter staff, in a preview of what ended up happening after January 6th, despaired of a reason for action but resolved to hit him hard on future VIO. Okay. I think that there's a funny thing here. Again, when you're in tech, there's probably something quite amusing where, I mean, I'll go through this sometimes where it's like, I had a fucking back and forth with Martina Navratilova, or, oh, look, you know, current year, James Woods is now fucking, you know, you go, that's probably like, it's funny and weird. Like, I don't know why, like, that's funny to me too. Like, you go, like I said, like, every so often you're like, oh yeah, fucking Boy George followed you. Oh, okay, that's weird. Okay, so I imagine it would become a bit of an in joke where it's like, okay, so Woods is like, this is, anyway, so I don't know why, you know, they're like, oh, the people are humorless, the humorless people. And it's like, who's the humorless ones here? You guys are taking all of this stuff way too seriously. So here, a label is applied to Georgia Republican Congresswoman Jody Hice for saying no to you're the one, the people who think that people are not, you know, can't take a joke and think words of violence are definitely way fixated on innocuous shit at Twitter and think that Twitter, like, oh, anyway, okay, fucking, they're brain broken. So anyway, this is a massive and fascinating, this whole thing is a fascinating insight into America, an American mindset, and how, like, not a single person is actually reporting, like, actually, there's nothing here. So here, a label is so far. So here, a label is applied to Georgia Republican Congresswoman Jody Hice for saying no. Say no to big tech censorship. Again, they said they're going to cry censorship. Let's not give them what they want because they keep wanting to cry censorship as part of their campaign strategy. Remember? It was foreshadowing, wasn't it? Not in the way you think. So, so say no to big tech censorship. Mail ballots are more prone to fraud than in-person balloting. It's just common sense. Oh, here we go. Common sense. Oh, fucking whatever. So Twitter does. So that's actually mail ballots are more prone to fraud. That's true. But yeah, whatever. Let's move on. I don't care. So Twitter, we know that what they're doing is lying. It's bad faith. They're misrepresenting what what they do is they hijack your lizard brain and make it what you think is true and feels true. Or they will take an edge case or a small percentage, like they said, that 2%, right? And they will make it sound like it is widespread. Much like, you know, when you look at the, you know, this trans stuff is up 400%, yes, but it evened out in subsequent years. It is not generally done on you know, like you're talking handfuls of people. You know, like that, but they would make it sound like, you know, everyone's trans in the kids, right? It's ridiculous. So so Twitter, it's just moral panic shit. So Twitter teams went easy on Hice, only applying soft. So yeah, so they'll focus again, but they also cherry pick, like, just as an example, this is that example of cherry picking where they'll take one kook like Brett Weinstein or Michael Malone or, you know, those people, and then they'll amplify that person and create so much noise that they override the overwhelming consensus on something, right? Now, again, I'm not qualified to talk about Malone. I don't know, but I'm saying that's just their MO. And then what they will do is astroturf it. They will put up a whole bunch of websites. I've talked about this mass formation psychosis thing where they all fall into lockstep and start using the same words over and over again. But what they do is they create a whole bunch of websites underneath so that when you Google what's mass formation psychosis, you get a whole bunch of those sort of patriot cookie cutter websites that then lead you into other conspiracy shit. So that's a known by me. I've detailed it before, strategy to, recruit people on what sounds normal, something like mass formation psychosis, which is nonsense. It's ahistorical, first of all, and it's not the term for it anyway. But they will take vulnerable people and sort of radicalize them and nudge them and try to get their details and then send them emails and then target them on Facebook. Because the one thing that they want to do is get you, so they can target you with Facebook content. They can target you using Facebook, okay, or with using PVC. So Twitter teams went easy on heist, and also your email address, and so they can go direct. So Twitter teams went easy on heist, only applying soft intervention, with Roth worrying about a wah-wah censorship optics backlash. Okay, so devil's advocate, the quoted tweet still shows up with the EDI, and the actual content Rep Heist says is lower level, more fraud with mail-in ballots than in person, is much more of a legitimate statement, even if scale is still minuscule. See what I said? So I think I'd lean towards just putting an MIB soft intervention on this rather than the full EDI. Agree, fair enough. Yep, I was just typing that. Okay, so they all agree with that. So I think going too far down the rabbit hole of labelling critical speech is dangerous. Yes, so I agree with you. Right, he comes out of this looking pretty fucking good. It becomes a self-reinforcing wah-wah censorship cycle. Yes, which is what they do. So I'm currently responding to judicial watchers whining to public policy. Yes, which is what they do. I regret nothing, but I'm happy to iterate what rules they violated. Okay. Meanwhile, there are multiple instances involving pro-Biden tweets warning Trump may try to steal the election that got surfaced, only to be approved by senior executives. This one, they decide, just expresses concern that mailed ballots might not make it on time. Now, again, the context matters. And this is the thing that I find fascinating about the role of a journalist is to provide context to information for people. This is what Weiss did. She didn't give any context. And so I don't understand what the game is here. What's the goal? I said this before, and it's like, okay, well, the difference between, I would say, they're both shitty, but one is objectively less shitty than the other. They both engage to see okay, so this is one thing. GOP, Trump, MAGAs, they are more overt about their platform manipulation, okay? They are aggressive, loud, obnoxious, astroturfed, obvious bots, bad bots, because they appeal to the most aggressive, stupid, redneck fuckheads, it's just going to happen that way. Right-wingers are going to be, well, dare I say, dumber, okay? Not at the top, but, they're going to be like Trump's more of a loose cannon, which means that his supporters are going to be sort of more of a loose cannon. And also, you've got those accounts like Libs of TikTok where they will go in a direct, see the problem like historically with right-wing parties versus left-wing parties. And this has been, I've got a blog post about this from Bush election, which was that they're quite willing to go into the gutter and they'll go low and below the belt. And one of the reasons why, they keep winning is because that rhetoric works. And one of the is that they're quite happy to go below the belt. And so the problem with the Democrats in general, and we've talked, like the ratchet effect as well, and also, this happens here as well, okay? So you saw this with Scott Morrison and the Labor Party, is that they just make a claim that's false and, wrap it in a bunch of personal attacks. And this is what fucking dudes on Twitter do to me as well. They'll just personally attack you and distract you from and put you on the back foot. And in order to sort of debunk or debate someone like, let's say Tim Pool, let's talk about Tim Pool. In order to actually, first of all, it's a waste of time because they will just keep moving the bar in an argument. These are all just like tactics, like communication tactics that they use. But for me to take on your average Lindsay bro, okay, and the shit that they say, It requires hours and hours and days and days and hours, and it still won't be enough, okay? You can't win against someone who's flailing because they're not playing by the same rules. They're not playing by the same rules of rhetoric that, and again, I've got my beefs with Democrats. I think that they've overreached. They are, but also this is true, which is that by and large, the tactics of the GOP are sort of, ratcheting the Democrats in that direction where they have to fucking fight dirty because they're pulled in that direction, okay? Now, I'm not saying that they're not, largely similar from a policy point of view, but I'm explaining that this is the position that you find yourself in, which is when you are looking at, in the case of something like this, where it's like, okay, Trump, fuckwit, Joe Biden, slightly less of a fuckwit, okay? It's not necessarily, all I see here is them case by case. Biden supporters and Hillary supporters and Democrat supporters tend to, they at least sort of bring it. I mean, obviously not, again, Media Matters, all those people, they're Midas touch, they do Trump-like tactics with Twitter, okay? But there's a whole thing where the GOP, these guys just break every convention. There are still people like Biden and those establishment people, they still do believe that rules should exist. They still do believe in principles. They do still, they might be corrupt. They might have all of these things, but at the same time, they do still respect the conventions that exist, in these things. So, there are places that they won't go, believe it or not. But also the Democrats are better at hiding it. So when it comes back to Twitter, you can see how, how I talked about that model with, that first layer, that second layer, that third layer, like Tristan Snell and Midas touch and all that. Those Democratic PACs are so much more sophisticated. I've showed you this stuff with Acronym and those agencies. They're so much better at hiding it and keeping an arm's length away from the dodgy the dodgy charities and the dark money. They're just better at it because they have the blue anons and they have their kind of thing, but they don't have the unhinged, stupid, aggressive, crazy element that. You get what I'm saying? It's just so they're going to misstep a lot more. So from a Twitter perspective, Trump and his followers are they're just going to engage in worse behaviors that are going to trip up things more. They're going to overtly walk over the policies. So they're going to go and punch you in the face. The Democrats will shove something up your ass while you're asleep. Trump will punch you in the face. So the Democrats know that if punching in the face is something that is a rule-breaking thing, right? But, stealthing someone up the ass is not on the rules. So the Democrats are just a little bit better at sort of hiding in plain sight and manipulating things behind the scenes using various things. I still think that's happening. Some of it is legit. A lot of people tend to be doing their jobs and just caught up. A lot of it is the same names popping up. And I find it very odd that Taibbi's not focused more on ADL and more on, the non-profits and that, because again, this is the model that they all use, the process that they all follow. One just does it in a more stealthy way, in a more respectable way. The Democrats are a smiling assassin and fucking, Donald Trump is John Wick, okay? You see what I'm saying? So from a Twitter point of view, they're not the same. They're not going to be the same because their follower base, the conduct, all of the signals is going to be different. Now, is there bias? Likely, probably, yes, when you take that into account, some of the information about, but that's you can't prove that. There's no evidence of that. Even me doing analysis here, MAGA fucks are going to accuse you of being like they just accuse you of everything they are, of being biased. I don't see anything but good faith here. So this one. They decide just expresses concern that, so this is so disgusting and terrifying, trying to steal the election. You have one, so this is so saying stuff like that, I can't, hey team, can I get your opinion on this? Now, again, I acknowledge my bias, which is, obviously I have no time for these people, okay? I think they're revolting. I think they are dishonest. I think they are deliberately lying, and that I also know about all of these disinformation networks that these people are in, that they don't believe what they're saying, and they're just saying it, they don't believe it. They're told to say it, and they're trying to do it because they want clout, they want money, they want all of these things. I have been approached by several of these things on both sides, okay, and centrist, whatever the fuck that means, which is, these pods of groups where they say, well, we'll amplify you and we'll promote your channel and we'll do all of these things and get you patrons and all that stuff if you just share this stuff. That is a known transaction that is occurring, and a lot of fucking establishment journalists have become influencers that way. Now, and I on the left as well, like Xanderhole popped out of nowhere. Guess who's in those things, right? He popped out of nowhere and he started suddenly talking about certain talking points all of a sudden. That's why. Okay, a lot of these people, I have receipts on that stuff. But they, those guys are compromised, and Twitter knows this because Twitter has access to the DM groups that they're in. They know what groups they're in roughly. Let's not forget that Twitter knows what they're up to on Twitter. So hey team, can I get your opinion on this Edge case with commentary and encouraging voters not to vote by mail? I believe we should label it. So they're not even saying we believe we should ban it. They're saying we should label it. I love how these guys are so opposed to just labeling, right? But this is my concern now with this Twitter community notes thing, which is knowing what we know, which is that they will absolutely just hammer and harass and, spend millions of dollars just using crazy people to flood it with shit, that they will be able to sort of manipulate that platform. Now, whether or not they do, will Musk, this doesn't make Musk look good. None of this. Unless they know that people like me are going to be doing analysis. Because I don't understand why Taibbi hasn't provided any context here. Why Musk hasn't, I don't know what their goal is. I don't know what the end game is here, other than owning the libs. I don't understand. So, and I'm not in the room, and I never will be. So, that's what it is. So anyway, I think that I'd not bother with labeling this one. It's still encouraging people to vote, but expresses the concern that mail ballots might not make it in time, which seems fair this close to the election date. So they actually do charitably yes and a lot of this stuff. So still encouraging people to turn in their ballots in person or to vote in person. Okay, thank you. Again. Good God. If you guys saw my emails, I'd get in a lot more trouble, man, because I say all sorts of shit in my fucking work. Anyway, so that's understandable. Even the hashtag has to steal our votes, referencing a theory that a combo of Amy Coney Barrett and Trump will steal the election, is approved by Twitter brass because it's understandable and a reference to US Supreme Court decision. Yeah, well, so I think, again, stoking fear on all sides is bad. So let's check with your local USPS folks to see how slow the mail is. Also find out when mail-in ballots must arrive in your state, but mostly vote ASAP. Trump and his new Amy Coney Barrett SCOTUS will try to steal our votes, so our numbers have to be huge. Now, okay. Hey team, hang on. Let's go back. What's this one? So, hey team, can I get a second opinion? Not seeing the violation here. Yeah, okay. So you got to remember, speaking of going back to Bush, you got to remember that there is precedent there for conservative Supreme Court justices to, there is precedent there. So, but the main thing is that this is discussed. It's not the conclusion. It's the fact that it's discussed. So not seeing the violation means, okay, so with understanding what happened with, Bush and Gore and all the controversy around that and how, all of those sorts of things, okay, I don't see the violation here because there is precedent. Okay. Now, I wouldn't label. I think that it's encouraging people to vote, but to be realistic that a mailed ballot might not make it in time. Thanks. This is actually really interesting stuff. So thanks, y'all. I was wondering about this part. Trump and his new will try to steal our votes. So yeah, that's understandable. We believe that it's a reference to the US Supreme Court decision on processing mail-in ballots that arrive after Election Day. Yeah, and we saw them do that. They fucking basically challenged everything in court, which is their right, okay, which got thrown out. So at the lower court. So in this exchange, again, unintentionally humorous, former Attorney General Eric Holder claimed the US Postal Service was deliberately crippled, ostensibly by the Trump administration. Now, the thing is, I wouldn't put it past them. Now, again, I sound biased, but I wouldn't put it past them, because knowing what they, again, when you know what, let history be a teacher, that they're quite willing to go as low as possible. Like, despite all the histrionics from fucking Jamie Lee Curtis, all of the fucking optics of all of this stuff, this is an established thing, which is that they're quite willing to do whatever it takes and go low and do whatever. And Trump in particular will do whatever. And he obviously clearly doesn't respect, the institutions or the rules or anything like that. He just, I think that is a valid concern. Okay, so again, I'm not saying that they did it or that there was evidence or that Twitter, other people to decide this, but I'm actually legit impressed at the brains that are in Twitter. Right? This is actually pretty cool. So I would love to work in this kind of role. Okay, so although I don't know if I don't know, can I just say I don't know if anyone would want to work in trust and safety after all of this, because there's always that risk that your name is going to be like, you're going to be public enemy number one. I hope yours got some good security. So, because they've all got guns. So, where are we? So Attorney General Eric Holder claimed the US Postal Service was deliberately crippled, ostensibly by the Trump administration. He was initially hit with a generic warning label, but it was quickly taken off by Roth. Okay. So it's too late to use the mails. Given Supreme Court rulings, I urge everyone to now vote in person. Early vote or use drop boxes. Protect your health, but don't let the court and the deliberately crippled Postal Service. Yeah, see, that's deprive you of your most precious civil right, plan your vote. But again, this is, you got to remember there's all these fucking botnets working underneath this stuff. So this is the thing I wish that we had access to, which was the signals underneath all of these tweets. So if they're being amplified by these groups and by bots and by, or there's a pattern, then of 150, 1,500 coordinated accounts retweeting it, very quickly, the signals. Remember how yesterday we had the notification spike flag and, those sorts of things. There's a combination of factors that go into any of these. And that just gets handled without y'all seeing it, right? So, again, I know I'm probably appearing more charitable to the Democrats in this instance, but that's just, a lot of this stuff is, it's not biased to, present facts and data and what the research says and what history says, right? So anyway, let's go. So, so can we reverse the label on this tweet? Everything in it is factually accurate. Working on reversing it now. Y'all have removed the moment label. I'm still trying to remove the EDI. Removed. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. There you go. Letter in November 2020, Roth asked if staff had a debunk moment on the SCYTL smart mantic vote counting story. God, this is boring. This is what they do is they make claims and then it takes so much fucking effort to refute the claim. That's energy vampire shit. And then you've got to spend your time disproving their shit because people believe it because it's flooded with shit and emotion and noise and all that stuff. And it's just, that's the MO. And I think that context, that's the context that you have to keep reading these things in, which is that MO. Okay. So DHS contacts told him were a combination of about 47 conspiracy theories. That's about right. So hi there, me again. Do we have a debunk moment on these voting conspiracies? DHS referred to it on a call today. Sadly not public, as a combination of about 47 different conspiracy theories. So hopefully there's stuff out there. That's funny. And true. I can't see how, Elon Musk has fucking got his brain rotted. He's like, is that you, Paul? Yeah. Can I have a coffee? Yeah. Thank you. Love you. The fuckwit tweets dropped when you're asleep. The banning of King Fuckwit. Okay. And it's so far and nothing. And it's interesting anyway. So, okay. Talking to my husband. Sorry. As Trump was in the middle of firing off 25 tweets saying things like, a coup is taking place in front of our eyes, Twitter executives announced a new L3 de-amplification tool. Okay. So that means level 3, is it? Level 3 support de-amplification, I'm guessing. So this meant a warning label could now also come with de-amplification. So hello everyone, I wanted to give an update on some of our enforcement options for tweets containing the civic misinfo that we've seen. It's been decided that tweets that we've manually reviewed and determined need a label will now be subject to L3 de-amplification. Yeah, so that means probably that de-amplification would be done by level 3 support. So further restricting the extent to which that tweet can be shared. The current batch of entity IDs will soon be used for automated labelling work, but we've created a new batch of entity IDs for the labels that we've been using the most during the past couple of weeks. Labels that we've only rarely used that have been deprecated already haven't gotten an L3 update. So I don't know what L3 is. Is it just level? I don't know what L3 is. So see, this is the stiff. It's like, well, where's the context of what's L3? Why you don't need to narrate this stuff because it's there for people to interpret, but you're not anyway. So maybe he does. So maybe I've missed something. So if there's a moment when I'm going to assume that it's L3 support that flags that in CRM. That's what I'm going to assume. So if there's a moment where we need the L3 version for one of those labels, please flag it to Matt Graydon or myself. To find the new L3 entity IDs, please look at the L3 US 2020 11 December update tab, Civic Integrity IDs, Strato spreadsheet. Okay. I love how they still work with spreadsheets and shit. So to explain that, so basically what they have done is automated all of this shit that they've probably underestimated how much there was. And again, the strategy that we know, flood it with shit, is probably they just found a way to automate some of these things and flag it and put it through level 3 support rather than having the policy team, like I said before about escalating up. That's, again, I'm going from the outside. I'm guessing, okay. But from a process point of view, I'm assuming that what they've done is created a tool that will allow it to not have to keep going to the policy team because they've got other shit to do, like more pressing shit. So what they've done is created a tool where level 3 support, where it can just go and empower level 3 to make a decision. That's what I'm interpreting it as. If you know differently, do correct me if you're watching it. So some executives wanted to use the new de-amplification tool to silently limit Trump's reach more right away. Beginning with the following tweet. Now, I think that because, again, you've got to remember all of the signals that were in place here. Because we were all thinking this, like we were all concerned about peaceful, transfer of power. Like, this is, there's so much to fucking talk about here. It's not as simple as censorship. Now, we can have a conversation about whether Twitter should be making these decisions. But it seems like they're not making unilateral decisions. They're actually consulting more than I expected they would, and discussing and showing a lot more nuance than I expected, which means I may have been unfair to Vijaya as well. This is why I'd like to hear her point of view on things. I just want to keep, as this breaks, my position changes, okay? Obviously, I was pissed off about the suppression yesterday, but that's mostly because I've fallen through the cracks and, some of the design decisions, right? But okay, so some executives wanted to use the de-amplification tool to silently limit Trump's reach more right away, beginning with the following tweet. Where are we? Trump got 11 million more votes. Yeah, so again, there's precedent for this, which is that a lot of this, I think, is just signals and stuff. Like, I think it's just very tricky. Because in the case of Trump, there is precedent with this. With the Supreme Court. We know the makeup of the Supreme Court. We know that if it gets to the Supreme Court, they are likely to rule, in favour of the. I'm trying to be as charitable as I can. And people who watch me know where I fall on this stuff. But I can't think how a different decision, like that, it seems like they've, again, the banning may be too far, but it seems like he's had repeated warnings over years and years and years and years. He has never admitted fault. He has never, none of them have ever fessed up to platform manipulation. None of them have ever admitted that, they're running these engagement pods, neither side. None of them have ever actually fessed up to any of this stuff. And it seems like Twitter are getting an unfair fucking go here in this instance. Again, we slice things here. broken brain people think that everything is black and white and absolute. But on here, I can't see anything untoward. So, however, in the end, the team had to use older, less aggressive labeling tools, at least for that day, until the L3 entities went live the following morning. I'm still not clear on what L3 is. So, it would be nice if you would tell us that, Matt. That would help people like me to explain things that you're being paid and, handsomely in both clout and, mask blowjobs to actually clarify for people like me for free, who do it for free. Should enforcement with the new entity start now, or should I wait till the policy officially goes live tomorrow morning? Hang on. Good point. Let's start enforcement tomorrow. That'll save the APAC crew from having to do it. Okay, yeah. Because, again, when you're talking about the APAC crew, that means that they're outside of the United States as well. So Twitter, APAC crew, or Europe enforcing these rules, that has, again, geopolitical implications. So that's a good call. So that'll save the APAC crew from having to do it, and the Dublin office will only have to change things toward the end of the day. Okay, that's good. Lost it again. So for visibility, hey team, I'm recommending to label it with generic fraud claim. If okay, can I confirm to use the new identity? So yeah, okay. Hi, let's use the old one for generic fraud claims. We won't use L3 entities until tomorrow morning by San Francisco's time. So I can understand why they would do that because, like I said, it would have to come from United States Twitter because you get into foreign entities and foreign fucking employees and foreign interests, and that's a mess, man. Fucking hell. So the significance is that it shows, because you just know that they'd run with that. The APAC, the APAC manipulate, someone in Australia just arbitrarily decided, or South Africa, they just decided that, a US election, why do they care so much about America? It's none of their business. Care about your own country. Yeah, you are our country, you fucking idiot. So the significance is that it shows that Twitter, in 2020 at least, was deploying a vast range of visible and invisible tools to rein in Trump's engagement. And again, I think that that's the nature of his followers. I think if he was still a celebrity, not the president, it would be more innocuous. So the outcome, and also his followers. There's nothing wrong with. Okay, here's an example. Someone like Jordan Peterson, innocuous enough. Okay, but his followers are, tend to go on harass. I've talked about this before. About it's not just the person. It's the people who follow them. It's the audience. It's who they empower. It's what crazy people they fucking empower with every tweet, right? It's not necessarily the person in isolation. And that's why I'm very careful and cautious about the audience that I curate and the behaviors that I accept and promote. And, I don't tolerate men who just come in and wave their dicks and yell at people. I don't tolerate that because though I can take it, I will not tolerate them doing it to other people or other people in the community or anything like that. I'd rather have no audience, which I do, but I'd rather have no engagement than bad engagement. That's something that I try to foster. Someone like Trump doesn't model certain behavior. He doesn't model pro-social behavior. He models anti-social behavior. And so Twitter has to somehow figure out a way to intervene and encourage pro-social behavior because of the nature of his followers. If his followers weren't fuckwits, this would be a whole lot easier. Just pay attention to the way they conduct. They lie. Anyway. So even when they're telling the truth, it is wrapped in half truth. And amplified into, that's the thing. It's like they can't even lie straight in bed. Like, what the fuck? So anyway, so the ban will come. So here we go. So the significance is that it shows in Twitter in 2020 at least was deploying a vast range of visible and invisible tools to rein in Trump's engagement. Yes. You know why? Fuckwit. Empowering millions of fuckwits. I don't understand how this is this is not. To think about this as this is American politics in a nutshell. How absolutely broken this brain is to miss the fact. This is not, and even just that the talking points from the Young Turks are like, they're a private company, they can do what they want. It's like, well, no. No one will point out the fact that these people manipulate the platform, they harass people, and they, constantly just, it's just, It's a space race for fuckwits. It's not actually people using the platform in good faith. If they were using the platform in good faith, this would be more of an issue. The reason why it's upsetting I only care about people who use things in good faith. I have to defend the fuckwits because it affects the people who are good faith. But at the same time, like, cop it, fucking Jesus Christ. Anyway, so the ban will come after other avenues are exhausted. In Twitter, docs execs frequently refer to bots, e.g., let's put a bot on that. A bot is just any automated heuristic moderation module. Yeah, it can be anything. Every time a person in Brazil uses green and blob in the same sentence, action might be taken. Yes, okay. We know this. This is what I talked about. So in this instance, it appears moderators added a bot for a Trump claim made on Breitbart. And that's because what they do is what I told you. The talking points, and then they vary them enough. So they need a bot that can detect language patterns that are very similar, because they will be flooding these platforms with millions and millions and millions and millions of lies. I don't know what to tell you. Like, fucking hell. So in this instance, it appears moderators added a bot for a Trump claim made on Breitbart. The bot ends up becoming an automated tool, invisibly watching both Trump and apparently Breitbart. Yeah, because they're also innocent. And we'll add media ID to bot. Yeah. If we don't root out alleged voter fraud, yes, because look, they already had a video to go. They're editing it. It's on all caps. It's fucking QAnon. It's an empowered audience. They're going to amplify it and retweet it. Have you seen the tweets? And the bots that they use. You have to counter this shit. Like, what the fuck? Hey team, gonna add a fraud claim label to this. Claim a fraud about. They have to create these things because of them. Like I used the analogy before. Bank robbers complaining there's a security guard at the door. The solution to this, fellas, and it's mostly fellas, is to stop robbing banks. It's not fucking hard. So, hey team, going to add a fraud claim label to this. Claim a fraud, about 40 seconds of video. Yep. Good. There is no way to follow the frenzied exchanges among Twitter personnel from between January 6th and 8th without knowing the basics of the company's vast lexicon of acronyms and Orwellian unwords. No, it's just corporate shit. Okay, well, we'll read that. Okay. So, to bounce an account is to put it in timeout, usually for a 12-hour review cool-off. Good. Said that before. That's one of the things that I will defend as a again, cooling off, pro-social. That's an ethical design decision that they've made. It encourages you to cool off and cool your jets. Not a problem. Interstitial, one of many. This is going to be interesting. So interstitial, one of many nouns used as a verb in Twitter speak. Deny list is another. Means placing a physical label atop a tweet so it can't be seen. Okay. P2 has multiple meanings, one being public interest interstitial, i.e. covering a label applied for public interest reasons. The post below also references proactive V, i.e. proactive visibility filtering. You know what? I hope I don't think they're going to dump it all, but if they do, I'm going to go through this and provide my own context, I think, for free. Because, no one wants to hear anything that's actually accurate. FTR, these were interstitial by our agents who are prioritising our proactive V and GQ. So process working well at the moment from that perspective. Yeah, this is all necessary background to J6. Before the riots, the company was engaged in an inherently insane, impossible project, trying to create an ever-expanding, ostensibly rational set of rules to regulate every conceivable speech situation that might arise between humans. Yeah. What I find really interesting is that he doesn't contextualize any of this with what is known by researchers and well established, not just from the cabal of researchers who, clearly just get millions and millions and millions of dollars of, democratic dark money, including myself, and, my own eyes and anyone who's got any modicum of common sense that, these guys manipulate the platform He's never, not once said how. He's not once mentioned asymmetric propaganda campaigns. Not once. Not a single time. So this project was preposterous, yet its leaders were unable to see this, having become infected with groupthink, coming to believe sincerely that it was Twitter's responsibility to control as much as possible what people could talk about, how often and with whom. Okay, so the firm's executives on day one of the January 6th crisis at least tried to play lip service to a dizzying array of rules. By day 2, they began wavering. By day 3, a million rules were reduced to what we say goes. Yep. Okay. Hang on. Is there any more? Fucking hell. Who hates this? I hate this fucking thing. It's not fit for purpose, is it? Okay. Let's go. Do we have any more? Okay. He's broken his threads again. All right. Let's go. So, oh no, we saw this. Is that it? So that's it. Is that it? Yeah. Oh, I was waiting for him to tell us something. So first of all, didn't frame any of it as the context of this, which is what is established, which is platform manipulation. Okay, the volume of platform manipulation that is, yes, conducted by all bad actors on the platform, but also he doesn't acknowledge the impossible task that Twitter had. He doesn't acknowledge the hundreds and hundreds of papers on platform manipulation that exist that are also that there is a disproportionate amount of aggressive, abusive, below the belt shit that that's coming from Trump and Trump supporters. Like that's anybody who has used Twitter has seen it. If you've got any kind of fucking, if your brain isn't broken, you see it. Okay. Now, has it been, is this whole, orange man bad shit, is that disproportionate? Yes. And do the Democrats also do it? Yes. But I also happen to know that a large reason why the Democrats organise in this way, yes, it came from obviously the Obama campaign, started this sort of multi-level marketing fucking snowflake model approach to online campaigning. But, it's been perfected by the Trump campaign, and they did it without any ethics. Okay. I don't think that Obama's campaign, it wasn't a good idea, but they did it in, good faith in terms of, implementing sort of a organizer's handbook approach. But the reason why the Democrats do this is largely because of, you need to understand the concept of messaging and counter-messaging, propaganda, counter-propaganda. Like they're constantly just sort of on the back foot because, again, the data tells us over and over and over and over and over again that the Fox network, the Trump campaign, Bannon is on record repeatedly saying his strategy is to just flood it with shit, all of these things. There's no context there. It paints Trump, libs of TikTok. The takeaway here is that Taibbi, Weiss, and I imagine that the next drop will be the same, is that they're being painted as victims rather than, like I said, I'm going to keep using that metaphor because I think it works, which is, people complaining, bank robbers complaining about a security guard at the door because they robbed the bank. So, but they also have, the bank has, but also the bank has a picture of their face on the wall. The repeat offenders. They show up every Saturday, predictably, to rob the bank. And then now they're moaning that there's a security guard at the door on a Saturday morning. You see what I'm saying? And the fact that they have not provided that context, and what I find really interesting is that the left, right? I'm going to go watch yesterday's reaction videos. That was my plan. But what I'm going to try and stream on this every day because I think it's very important that I'm on record as well. Even though I don't think anyone, everyone's too busy. Like, I'm not a journalist. It's not my job, but it's something, this has led to this. And I think that I want it on record, what I thought in the moment, because I'm generally correct. But also, I know more, so I can explain some of this stuff. I don't want people reading some of these things, because I know that the sort of mainstream left, like, they're going to dismiss this as nothing. It's not nothing. But also, Yoel Roth does not come out of this looking bad at all. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish there, because he actually, I hope, he comes out of this looking like a really decent, good faith, hard-working guy. Maybe I'm biased, but at the same time, I'm pleasantly surprised, because I thought that they were more, I'm curious about Vijaya, but I imagine her job's very difficult too. I'm going to have to recalibrate my impression of her as well, because also when you understand that being summoned to Joe Rogan, let's just reframe that and see it in a more charitable light. I mean, Tim Pool's an idiot. Imagine being the head of legal on something this complex and working your whole life to be confronted by this fucking beanie idiot who doesn't know anything really. He's just upset about what we saw as the learn to code thing was obviously an early iteration of what they were talking about with the bots, where they detect certain patterns. I'm not going to say the word nothing burger, but because it's not. It's an interesting conversation. And some of these design decisions against ordinary users and the lack of transparency is a problem. But I don't know what Musk's end game here is. I have to shift my thinking here. I may end up just changing my mind, because I think that maybe he is bad faith. But what will happen is he'll tweet something and I'll go, oh, okay, all right then, okay, whatever. Maybe, I like the fact that this is, again, to his credit, that he's making it transparent so that we can get a full view of it. But I don't know what Taibbi is trying to accomplish here. Why? They're clearly not giving context. They are obviously leading MAGAs into into the exact thing that a lot of Twitter were talking about, which is that it just gives them fuel for a narrative that is only a half-truth at best anyway, which is that conservatives are picked on with Twitter. It's like, well, no, this is a process failure and there is a bias, and that happens in every organisation. Like that's going to happen. I imagine that there's probably there's a Republican bias at fucking big oil companies, but no one. It's like, okay, well, that's going to happen, but I want to see how groupthink is dealt with, like how they, who was in the room to object. And from what I've seen from these chat transcripts, like, it seems like they have that level in place where there's obviously probably needs to be more of a balance, but I don't know what he wants with especially with a global company. There's been some data around how the world would vote. If the world got a vote with the United States, they'd be overwhelmingly voting for the Democrats. So maybe, like, again, this US-centric view that the GOP it needs to be half Republican, that ignores the world, which is that the GOP in the world context are overrepresented in terms of their proportion and worldview worldwide. Like, again, they're just looking at it from an American-dominated perspective, right? And so that it concerns me, because that's an easy answer for that, which is that they try to make Twitter employees more representative of the world rather than of America. And Elon Musk wants it to be 50%, or sort of 50% of a country that represents, a small portion of the world, and it's going to amplify a fringe, bunch of lunatics who don't necessarily respect or care about or appreciate the broader impact that the United States tech has, that United States, culture has on the rest of the world. I mean, the fact that, why is he not, I mean, China's a bad example, but what's going on with Twitter Australia? What's the makeup of Twitter Australia? Is that, is each federal, okay, so let's look at it this way. Of the American staff, what's the portion? So is it 40% independent not voting, 30% Democrat, 31-29 in either direction, Democrat, Republican? Okay. In America, if that's the case, the graph that Musk gave, let me have a look actually. Oh no, I have to search for it. Hang on, let me search for it. But that graph that he gave, which was using percentages, so I'm already fucking sus. I'm going to have to go and look through that study actually. Let's go. Oh, fucking, where is it? Let me go back. This is what happens when I go to sleep. Where's my note? Let's go. I do get alerts here, but let's have a look. Musk. Oh my God, now I've got to scroll through Taibbi's thread again. Hang on. Sorry, hang on. No, but I want to look at the breakdown, because if that is representative of Twitter employees across the world, then that would be a fairly accurate makeup. If that is of America, then 30% max would be Republican, because 40% of people don't actually vote, right? In America. And this is part of the thing. It's like, okay, what do those numbers mean? Let's have a look. Where is he? Here we go. So, let's put it back on. Okay, so let's see if we can see this. So, employee donation to midterm candidates by party includes, okay, so it's contributions to party. Okay, so $200 or more in America. Okay, so, all right, so that's not, is that even, so of the Twitter, okay, so it wasn't the makeup and demographics of Twitter employees. It was those who donate. But that, okay, so again, this is, that is in line with what you, remember how I was saying, like that, the Oracle, Intel, Hewlett Packard, right? They're more conservative. That's interesting. Okay, so anyway, okay. So that is based on, so the numbers, I have to have a look, Centre for Responsible Politics. So it's only of those who did donate to midterm candidates. Okay, so this was midterm as well, by party. So how many of those employees are there? Like how many, okay, so this is where I find the cherry picking concerning, because first of all, Twitter has employees around the world. Second of all, not all Twitter employees would have been given given money. And if they're in the, I mean, one of the things where if you work in, like in Australia, if you work in the public service or in, you've got to disclose sort of if you're a member of a political party. Part of the reason why I don't sort of, I try not to be an active member of a political party is that it does imply some sort of conflict of interest. And because, but also when you are, when you run as a candidate, like in here, you would go on sort of leave or resign from your position if you were sort of, likely for a safe seat or whatever. You can't hold those two things at once. If you are running a campaign, you have to go on leave, right? And so that conflict exists, and that process, and I want to see the policy around that. So like if you're running for office and you work for Twitter, then do they have the same, roughly the same process as anyone else, right? But what proportion of Twitter employees donated? You see what I'm saying? Like, okay, what's those numbers? So that's where I'm interested in that. So, but again, just be careful of the framing and the sleight of hand here. I might try and dig some of that information up. I'm going to look at that study and say, okay, well, so of the 7,500 employees, and this is what they did with this, again, on the other side of that, with the two women who are suing Elon Musk for firing them over for gender discrimination, was that they said that 57% of women employees were gone versus 53% of male employees. But what that does is misrepresent the numbers. So always be skeptical of anyone who is using percentages when presenting stats, because without access to the raw data, because this is where you can hide data, because with that, it was 7% of women, but underneath that, you've got, he was actually firing a lot of DEI, comms, marketing, a lot of those sort of jobs that were not really, that were heavily politicized, that were greasing the wheels with journalists, that were sort of maybe selling blue checks, that sort of stuff, the corrupt people. Those teams, their makeup is more female. So that's going to skew that. But also on the engineering team, 57% of female engineers could have been to 2 people, which it was. I think it was like, of the 4 women in the engineering team, 3 were let go. Like that, again, that's versus, say, I don't know, again, I don't know how many, but I'm not saying, I've got to look at those numbers. We're dealing with conjecture here, but that's a sleight of hand as well, which is how you misrepresent that. There's nothing there. Now, are women discriminated against in tech? Yes. Like being forced into the office, being forced to go work in San Francisco rather than sort of anywhere else, does that negatively impact mothers, females, mothers and women? Yes, especially women with children, because you'd have to, move schools, you'd have to go, be at the office. Real estate's more expensive there, all of those sorts of things. Like San Francisco, that's just not necessarily, there is an indirect discrimination that it negatively impacts women more in tech. Same thing with, the expectation of hardcore work, right? 16 hours a day. Women do more and more domestic. It's just not possible, okay? That benefits men. That's an indirect discrimination. It's not necessarily, like I said on Twitter, I was like, unless these guys think that unless she's literally being gang raped on a boardroom table, that she's not being discriminated against. It's like, these guys are fucking morons. But, but at the same time, there's also that slippery sleight of hand where, there's going to, if there's few, this is how you skew the data. There's fewer female engineers than there are male engineers. And again, there's reasons for that, partially because of, socialization, all those sorts of things. It's not about competency. But if there were let's say there were 10 engineers and 6 went, and there being 100 engineers and 40 male ones went, does that make sense? That's how you skew those figures. So just be mindful of the fact that I'm instantly suspicious of, especially in the context of the way that this is being framed by Taibbi and I don't know what they're, if I'm being charitable, maybe they're they know that people are going to interpret it in the way that, like I said, they're just bad bots. They're just, going to just follow narratives. And maybe they're just hoping that there's going to be people that do real analysis that actually, but I don't know what. Let's wait and see. All I can do is wait and see. We don't know what the end game is. This was framed poorly. Yol did not come out of this looking bad. He came out of this looking better than I expected. I've always liked the guy. I've always respected him. Okay. He seems to be someone who's doing his job. I'm going to go do some more reading and figure out and see what their reactions are, because a lot of the time you can figure out the agendas when you see, if anyone on the sort of mainstream, independent, left-wing, YouTube, mouth-breathing fuckheads sort of do any of this kind of stuff, then I'll be more understanding. But if they just fall into line and are anti-Elon Musk without any real analysis, then that will mean that there is an agenda. So my knee-jerk will be to be, okay, defend Elon Musk, because, the enemy of my enemy is my friend and all those sorts of things, right? It's more complicated. But if we take it on face value, I'm confused by the framing of this. I'm not confused. I'm suspicious. I'm never confused. I know what I'm talking about. I don't make stuff up. Anyway, I hope this has been useful. Become a patron if you want. Whatever. I do this for free. I do it out of love and care for the industry. I fill the gaps that like others who get paid a whole lot more should be doing. But I'm just here to be on the record and make sure that those that do wander in and see this stuff have their head straight. If you want me to talk on your thing, then I will about this, because I'm quite happy to explain it. Some of it is confusing and dense, and but this stuff was a reaction. I may have misspoken. There's a few things where I probably need more information, but because there's not much information, I'd probably be waiting for the data dump mostly. But I'm going to go. I'm going to have my Saturday. I suspect there's probably another drop tomorrow because it seems to be that they're back in, they're tag teaming it now. I hope that there's some actual analysis that comes and that we get access to like real information. And I would like to be able to see that for myself because at the moment, it's being very heavily redacted, obviously, and spun, and the things that they're focusing on are not really of interest or newsworthy in any way. And it's very weird how the things that they think, again, I don't know where Musk is either very, very naive that he thinks that that this makes Twitter look bad to anyone but his base of Doge memes and like cryptards, right? I don't see how, and megas, I don't see how. Maybe he's just going, okay, let's sort it out. Let's just share what we know, and he's using like the closest thing to a respectable journalist that America has, and knowing full well that this is just maybe he knows that this is nothing. And he's like me, where I go, well, transparency. Okay, we need a great reset, and we need a bit more transparency around this stuff so people know what happened. We know, like for me, I go, okay, I fell through the cracks. I'm seeing that now, and because Twitter, I imagine, spend 80% of their resources dealing with these fucktards that people like me get lost in the noise, and I imagine that's probably what's happened. So anyway, I'm going to go. Have a great weekend. When something drops, or if something drops or whatever, then, I'll be around. I'll try to be. I do have my sort of, pre-Christmas stuff, but my workload, but let's see how we go. So I'm going to go through and have a look. But Greenwald, Taibbi, they're all going to the framing of this is very strange, but I can't think of anyone else that he could trust. I'm not a journalist. I don't, there's no one really that I trust. Like this, all this does is show maybe that Elon Musk has the exact same level of trust in American media that I do, which is that they're the least shit option because they're all shit. Okay. I mean, Ryan Grimm, I trust. Why, I don't know why Breaking Points aren't given this gig, because I think that they'd actually give it, they'd give it more love and care, but let's see how we go. I'd like to see Kyle cover this. But anyway, let's see. He's saying that the evidence is voluminous. See, again, we just got to trust the guy, but I'm trying to see, I told you, he tweet. Look, what's he said? All right, let's have a look.
Elon.
Oh, not that one. Elon. So, breaking. Elon Musk and Twitter files show Twitter activist employees without basis suppressed and censored the president. See this spinning? President of the United States in the days before the 2020 election. This is damning evidence of election interference. Okay. Unequivocally true, the evidence is clear and voluminous. 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 Here we go. So the nutters are going. Just wondering how deep this rabbit hole we are in. Oh my God. I highly recommend following this if you want. Oh my God, these people. See what I'm saying? I don't know about this. Check out R.M. Brown, best YouTuber. And I saw him, he dropped a video today, so I'm going to check that out. All right, let's have a look at Musk. Let's see what he's up to. If the Fed raises rates again next week, the recession will be greatly amplified. No, it won't. Oh. Oh my God. Okay. I think it's time to go.
Elon.
Time to go. I love you. Talk soon. Become a patron if you want. If you value this in any way and you value, I'm not going to say I'm not a journalist, but
Elon. What a load of old shit.
All right. It's time to go. I love you. Take care. If you want to become a patron, that would be great. I appreciate it. Also, if you want to harass people to have me on to explain things or talk about things or recommend me or, I'm thinking about going in. I'm thinking of going back to tech, going in house and to other tech companies and trying to get them thinking about these issues, because I think there's a lot of learning here from this stuff. I feel like this conversation isn't over. I want to be part of the solution, not just someone screaming about the problem, but, my voice doesn't get heard. So it is what it is. I love you. I might even just end up starting a new YouTube channel and seeing if I can just reset the account and get maybe picked up by the algorithm again. Let's see how we go. I think being demonetizing my account probably didn't help either. But let's see how we go. I love you. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your precious life seconds. See you soon. Bye. Do, 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 do. All the Trump supporters have lost their minds. Everything will turn out shit. They've lost their minds. Elon Musk has lost his mind. Everything sucks and I'm gonna go do some shopping instead. Become a patron. I love you so. Bye.